let's do this. Alright, hello everyone. I'll do this real quick. So in GC, the downtime has been higher than expected. Most of the reason why is we wanted to do a faction layer of all. So we did a pre-alpha of what we wanted to do. So specifically, we started splitting all the sub-factions within factions. This will allow very much a better breakdown of what happened during the downtime. So let's take a dive. So first of all, before we started, we decided to check over the fact that do we want to respect map lore within the Clone Wars for the new map overall and faction overall, and this led to many other things in where should we put everything as possible on every map or put specific factions on certain maps. And if we do that, we must have a better system to work with our layers. Uh, One of our reasons why is because we have over so many factions. So, just for the big record, we have over 22 Republic-based faction, 8 CIS faction, 6 indigenous faction or independent, as we say. Some of them are not even present in the game, and 1 that is the Empire, for a total of 37. Now, if you take this in perspective, later on the line, there will be roughly 10 sub-factions for each that you can select from for gameplay behaviors, which we'll take a dive later. So this right here, what we decided to do, well, we decided to scratch this idea overall because this would just lead to many other things. And what we'll do is we'll do some of it by hand and some of it with our automation system that we did. So in this case, all that you see here is pretty much a dark line of so I'll do this for everyone. So all you see here, adding rebellion, perhaps adding some white clones, everything like marine sorted maps. Well, we decided to scratch that. You'll be able to vote for a lot of factions and some factions within the layer that you'll be able to vote later on. Now the bigger picture. Crash course of how faction works in GC. So Off-World, so OWI, made a system. Recently they added a third, a fourth faction selection so we can play against, really. So blue 4 will be clones, red 4 will be CIS, Galactic Empire will be Pan Asia Forces, which is called Pan for now. And Tuscans will be independent, just like a militia or stuff like that, or insurgents, like Vanilla Squad. And this allow us to have certain fights within each other. So this is the quick crash course of how things works within the engine. So another crash course of how previous factions were working in GC before and how it will be in the future. So for us previously, we did something that just was very common sense for us, just for easier faction management. This led to not being as much flexible, but easier to manage and easier to do faster updates. So what was going on is we had 2 factions instead of 37, where it was simply the Grand Army of the Republic or the CIS. And within the Grand Army of the Republic, we had all of these sub factions inside. to allow just faster management. So everyone has the same team image, everyone has the same team icon, everybody has the same commander abilities. Same thing with the CIS. It was as simple as that. It was easier for us to manage, and that was mostly the reason why we wanted to stick that way. But now this will change. So if we go back to page 2, everything that you see here, every little faction, so battalion, regiment, troopers, whatever you want to call it, has been moved to their own team. So each of this now is their own faction within the off-world system. So this lead that we needed to do some merging and some killing of some of these factions because we either have them or not, and faster optimization. So what you see here, is not the end picture. No, it's subject to change. Some of them were not even present when this document was created. So if this is not the picture perfect of what will happen for the next, big update for this subject, do not panic. It is absolutely normal. So just for a quick template and glimpse over what was going on and what we did, this is what happened. So everything, so let's say the clone one, the shiny clone ones, well, they should be renamed Shiny P1 for short name. This will be their great name in the game, the Great Army of the Republic. They will have their own image, their own custom icon, and their own commander abilities. Uh, and further down the line, I'll talk about custom kits for each of those. So this led to many other things, such as killing factions that were not even present when we look inside our database. So some of them were dead, some of them were merged for phase 2, phase 3, and the CIS merging with the biome system of off-world. We decided to merge the snow troopers within the standard CIS team. So if you're stuck inside a vote on Renvar for a snow map, and you only see standard or spec ops, for example, your standard druid team will be camouflaged as white snow and not as brown druid. Indigenous, pretty much, they were their own factions already, so nothing really changed here. It's just some renamable of the current factions they were, except the Gungans. The Gungans were within the Republic. Uh, they were within the Republic, if I recall. Actually, no. Sorry, I apologize. It was not within the Republic. They had their own image for it too as well. So, we had some issues while doing that. Plenty of issues. So, unlike Squad, we had a lot of Blue 4 faction. Since we migrated over 22 teams or so to Blue 4, our squad does not have that. So, this will lead to struggle with the layer and the vote system later on. But we found a way to counter that. So since there were a lot of clone sub-factions, we'll redo their own team image, team icon, as I said, team commander assets, depending certain factions. And after many months of thinking and binkering commander assets, we decided that we will provide a commander role for every sub-factions, for every faction, pretty much. So there will be no longer a commander skin on live play. Every team will be able to pick up a commander role in the role selection. Obviously, this will come with a custom inventory. We decided to merge the snow counterparts with the standard red army to reduce the red 4 faction count to bring new CIS factions in the far future. Who knows what it might be. Which led to this issue. So the good news about doing this merge is to prevent the clone and droid factions vote to be always seeing some clones and you aren't able to vote for, we decided to make 5 sub-faction per each, and for attackers and defenders. So we have a total of 10 attackers and defenders set up for each, which I'll take a dive at page 6. So whenever you will attack on a layer, as you vote, you will have 5 choices for one of the forces that will be present on the layer. Each of these forces will have different vehicle setups and a specialist on the team that will make the difference for the game. Same thing for defenders. Defenders, you will see, it might seem that they have been nerfed, unlike the attackers. Don't worry, even the attackers has been nerfed with a lots of vehicle timers just to give more opportunities. So, as I was shown page 6, the attackers sub-faction setups will be present on every AAS or RAS layers because all our layers will move to RAS. However, they will only be present for the random invasion attackers. So what you'll see in the attacker section will only be available for attackers for random invasions. The defender sub-faction setup will be available on random invasions to balance the game flow and game state. This will give opportunities for attackers to not stall on first or second objective. Lots of delays will be added to vehicles to improve gameplay as well. Skirmish and seed layers will remain inside GC with specific loadout. We were still thinking that we will put 1 or 2 sub-faction within skirmish. So it might just be the standard clone 1 shiny and the standard droids on skirmish and seeding layers without putting 10 more of those types of units on skirmish and seed, just to have less layers to manage. So since there will be 10 sub factions active per faction, there should be around a total of 310 sub factions to vote for. Roughly, it's a rough number, roughly. Again, subject to change. Different setups for attackers and defenders. This will load to lots of workload on our end, and we were able to create a script. Thank you to Ombap, if he's present. We will do some corrections for the script if needed. 4 indigenous forces, so Tuscans, Sarum Tuscans, Gungans, Umbarans, or Twi'leks, Mandalorian and stuff like that. They will be able to vote only on certain maps, specifically. However, independent factions can fight against anyone. And Pan-Asian factions from Otobuya, which is the Galactic Empire for us, can be on certain map as well, which they are right now. And they can fight anyone but themselves, just like before. There you go. I think I repeated myself here. I just put some picture below of commanders. Clone Rebellion Commander, 327 Commander, Fordo Commander, Kalani, droids. So, now let's take a dive about what Offworld did for their live play and what we did for ours, for attackers and defenders selection of sub-factions. So, I'll go over the quick legend here. So, quick over the book. Logis, standard Logi, light vehicles, TX-130s, N99s, forklift SPG-9s, maybe AT. Big vehicles, SAT ATTs, speeders, air, skirmish fighters. You're correct. Fighters are coming back this update. They will be even more with the faction overall and the layer overall. They will be everywhere. The Flying Doritos is the little triangle spaceship, which I forget the name right now. As explained previously in the previous slide. So at Offworld, they have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. They have nine types of factions, sub-factions you can apply to a team. On our end, we did not want to manage nine sub-factions per or 37 factions I showed earlier. We will only manage 10. And this will be the setup toolkit. And this is a fair warning. What you see with a little star here is subject to change and is not part of the future layer overall right now. Where if you pick up special forces, you will have one extra kit, one extra commando kit, one extra grenadier kit on live play. This is what we would like to have. However, it has not been decided, but this is something we're really willing for to do for every factions, sub factions of attackers or defender state. Uh, so this is subject to change. Really, do I go over every of these teams? Um, might as well.
No.
No.
I think the important thing for this is people understanding the dev pipeline for starters. This isn't all, as I just typed into the dev stream chat as well, this isn't all for the upcoming update. These are also long-term goals that Buff is sharing. The most important being that there are major layer overhauls moving forward. So we're going to give snapshots moving forwards every update. The upcoming 7.3 compatibility patch will have some new R invasion layers that make their way in that show some of these changes that Buff is highlighting in regards to which faction loadouts are available. The fighters will be coming in. We have a bunch of cool new
Vehicles
features
as
as
well.
well
Yeah.
and vehicles. So lots of thing moving down the line. The important thing that Buff is sharing here is that we're in the stages of breaking down how faction voting is being set up. So something that OWI has been working on in the works for months. We are now bringing to GC and we'll be deploying patch for patch. So in this table that Buff has shared in announcements, you can see that this is like basically breakdown, and they're subject to change. We always are adapting, seeing how things play in live, updating those as they go, and moving from there. And I think Buff has some, apart from these examples already that are the specifics, I think Buff will move into how that actually plays out in the next couple slides for what it means for the maps themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Hive. So for attackers and defenders, there will be bonus in between each. Oh my God, between each faction setup structs of OWI. So if you pick up armored, you might have more armored vehicle, but you really have no other bonus than having a few armored vehicles. That's it, etc. So hopefully this will spice up the votes instead of always picking up combined arms or armors or special forces because it looks cool and sound cool. At least with air assault, mechanized, and combined arm, there's bonuses that you might want to pick up instead of special forces on certain layers. Hopefully this will spice things up. Bespin layers and Meteosis will have their own single-use layers, which means that what is written above will not be applied to them. We're trying to make the system as much flexible as possible, but this doesn't work for these two levels. So Meteosis investment platforms, you will have your own teams to vote for. They will be automatically voted. There will be no vote for these layers. All right, now that I talked about the factions, let's take a quick dive about how about we redo our current layers. So the GC layer state has been roughly the same for the past 4 years, with AAS and Invasion. Some of them, some Riv and RAS has been added, between 4 years as just test bench and giggles to see how it plays, how it will feel, etc. However, we will take a next jab at this as well within the future updates, just to refresh the gameplay experience in GC. So I won't read the legend here, but here's a quick overall with our little dev jaster here. They give me some snippets before. of the future setups of what we did. Actually, some of them will be live within the upcoming update, hopefully soon. Such as for Tatooine, we will have neutral resupply, multiple point zones, and only a 4 cap flag match. Sometime it might be 5, sometime it might be only 3, or even 6, but we're mostly looking for always 4 objective per map, sometimes 5s. Acclimator objectives will remain after the Acclimator rework that I previously did with the force build sections. And this will allow a better game state for the maps. So whenever the game will start, it will be random points to pick on. If you guys played Squad or Riv, actually GC, I think life goes on really. This is just a draft here actually of Tatooine Riv that we created also, and other layers, where we decided to tackle some of the main objectives of the map to have better game flow as well and faster travel for vehicles or infantry. Where well, we decided to just pretty much demolish the entire street here to make its own street with own intersection, and we ended up actually even creating more. So we forgot the intersection. We even did more. We'll see further down the line. Just some better game flow. There we go. So before, this is Tatooine City or Bestine, I think if we call it, if I recall. Um, Again, the gameplay was great inside the city. Wasn't great for vehicles. So if you're a Logi, even if you're trying to help your team, it was very hard to move around and move through certain area of the map inside the main city, where most of the time there's always 1 or 2 objectives. So to improve this, I simply remove lots of road, move stuff around, also optimize the map. Where one of the major changes is the road here on the right that can go up to the suburbs. Same thing here with the second road, top right. We can go in the further suburbs. Same thing here at the bottom. We can go within the suburbs. And we have now a main road. So we have 2 pretty much, I was going to say, like 2 New York blocks now instead of 1. So we have 1, 2 here, which pretty much split the city. And these changes are not only reflected on Tatooine, but there will be other maps. I mean, there is other maps that has been reflected as of late, such as Galban, Morak, Cessid Equator, Morak Legacy, Morak Canyon, and so on. And this is it. This is what we'll provide in the future. This is roughly a 3-phase project, where phase 1 will be, we already redid sub factions to faction setups. However, the current faction setups is not what we currently want. It's just a test bench. But we will move to this kind of picture here that you're seeing for the faction and sub factions. This will be a phase 1, phase 2 project. Phase 1 will roughly be we put all the teams to where they should be. Phase 2, we apply every possible type of attackers and defender setups. Phase 3 is the layer overall that comes with it, with the custom role, because right here there will be the commander asset, the commander role within the attackers and defenders, and phase 3 would be the maps overall that we must finish for every map, so touch-ups, rework, perhaps new maps, and so on. Is there actually I will take a few questions from the public. Let me check if I do have pings enabled. Just a moment.
We've been answering them pretty good as they've come, but we'll take some larger or grand scale questions.
Okay, they're just show chat. There
Yeah.
we go. Does buff pay for WinRAR? I do not pay for WinRAR. I use gzip. All right. Do we bring people up stage for a questioning, Mr. Hive, or we just let them
No, we'll
write it
just do
out?
it via text.
All right,
Yeah.
via text. All right, let's do that.
As I see people are. Heffalali asks a good question, Buff. One of the slides had hyenas listed under the fighter section. Everyone just wants to confirm if you meant to say vulture, if that was actually meant to say hyena. And it was just your preface at talking about how the bombers might be coming into actual live play.
So bombers will come in GC as well within the future updates. Uh, this will be, selected only to perhaps a specific team in here. I won't say who, but I think you guys can clearly see where it will go. Uh, but I can recall this is the hyena. For me, it's the droid fighter. With the red eyes, I can recall the name. I think it's the hyena fighter, if I remember. So same thing with the buff.
Vulture fighter, hyena bomber.
Vulture. Yeah, correct, vulture. So yeah, both of them should come with the GC. Yeah.
Mr. Cheese is asking how will the DC-17M be changed?
Uh, there is some slight tweaks in this update as of now. If I recheck the game log, uh, just a tad less weight, really, and nothing else. Nothing else will change. It's very good as is.
A little teaser for them, I guess, Buff. Are we ever going to see modular aspects of the DC-17M for commandos?
Yes.
Tazwell is asking if, as in vanilla, we'll see tank or air layers. So let's say with 7 tanks per side, or like the old Bestness meme layers. I can answer the air component. There is a fun, fancy new layer that should already be updated in the layer list.
Yeah.
It's a chaotic air match with 20 or so fighters or aircraft. And then, Buff, you can speak to the armor aspect.
Yeah. So for the armor aspects, this came into mind where what we might do for future updates is we have 1 or 2 giggle layers. We'll call them giggle layers where they might have low maintenance, or we might scratch them at every update. But we'll put either 20 fighters on each side or maybe 10 tanks on each side, and it's just tank layer only, where it's just vehicle only layer and air fighter only layer. But there will be only 2 of these. We'll try to put them as much as possible in every update, but it's not a priority. But we'll try to keep these giggle layers. Um, for armored layers, again, for standard gameplay, you would definitely pick something like armored assault to help you, or mechanized for light vehicles. But for tank vehicle only, there will be maybe 1 layer. We'll mostly try to focus on bringing up the full vote setup for each factions.
Zachromian is asking if we're going to get a Grenadier overhaul at some point.
Not as of late, no. Grenadier
It's
is a
something we
very
can
big
discuss.
puncher, still. And recently, if I remember, a few months ago, we changed the from being 8 players in the squad to 7 player in the squad. So if somebody leave the squad, you won't lose the kit. This was done on the Grenadier, but the Grenadier still is very strong, very very strong.
Zuminary, I can answer your question regarding fighters. I'll skip up to a couple. The intention for fighters is to basically have anti-air capabilities and very light casts. They're designed to quickly make attack runs and distract infantry and vehicles more so than act as the finishing components for ground. Younglings as a faction. Which layer may vote to slay them for younglings?
Yeah, so you guys might have seen that. This is just in the database. Maybe one day. Same thing with the Jaguars. Maybe one day. No, we cannot say more. I cannot say more to that, really. But Empire. So phase 3, Empire. Phase 3, not Empire. Phase 3 is present in GC. There was some rework for them in this update as we speak. But no rebels yet. Only clone rebellions and phase 3. You might see other teams in the future, such as Barons, as we spoiled over years ago, and other factions. But right now, our priority is on other things.
Will we ever get Empire versus Rebel clones with uncapped kits like on Corvette seating? Those are layers that are
Oh,
dependent on like fun. So as Buff said, those are part of the giggle layers to say. That is as basically we're able to maintain push out further. Well, those will be added. But as Buff said, they're not part of our core layer of all changes.
just for the Mr.
Yeah.
GC, Delta skins when. Fun fact, we do have already the Delta skins for Commandos. Um, what we might do is whenever you do the Commando drop as Commander asset, you see the Delta squad as the Commando squad AI, but the AI does not deserve the Delta skins because our AI is very dumb. So we do have the skins. We're looking for other things of what we might do and can do for it.
We do not have an estimation for the 7.3 update. Well, we're looking at a couple last minute things as today we're presenting this to you guys. We're seeing what's up, and then we'll move from there. Nick has a question regarding balancing. So the rework of army setup isn't really to balance out the current vehicles and weapons, but to introduce more matchup. Example is CIS mechanized with clone ops spec.
So
To a degree, that is, yeah. So what Buff is probably going to show right now is that the matchups they're going to stay the asymmetrical system, but each faction setup or each subdivision setup has the ability to deal with the counterparts. So if you run more infantry, you're going to have more AT capabilities. If you're running more armor, you're obviously going to suffer to that degree. But that also each way will counter each other out. Same way to how in vanilla you're able to play, and albeit there are some deviances to the balanced quote unquote scheme as we see in Vanilla Squad, where the intention is similar to that to balance out how factions are fighting one another and how those are working.
correct. Timers is a big part of this. Very big part of this. Um, Timers helps the game flow. And if we go back into the presentation, what you see on attackers will be what both teams can only select on RAS, on advanced and secure. You can only pick up attackers setup. So both teams have less timers because you attack right off the bat with all the vehicles or vehicle shenanigans. So just better gameplay, asymmetrical, and as Hype said.
And I'm scrolling down. I'm scrolling through a lot of mod down stuff. With all auxiliaries asking how long these changes will take, these are going to take over a couple updates. So we're going to try and these most of these changes. So like being able to vote for the certain like biome factions of sorry like biome dependent factions for maps that will come sooner than let's say than the completion of all three phases that Buff pointed out. The fighters are coming next update, so that's already one stage out of this way, out of the way. So it's just a matter of how fast this progresses. But as we always say, this is a group of freelance developers who have professions, have university, have a variety of things going on in life. So it's basically just as much, and I'll say this: the team puts in a tremendous amount of work, the developers. So it's really up to their praise here. But what basically comes through, the work that they're able to put in is how fast it's dependent. So things can happen overnight, and things might take a week or two. And that's for each stage of these phases. So let's keep going down the list. I see Angus answered some things here. Roper did.
There are new maps that we're working on. Yes, we are. We're still working on Umbera. It's been 2 years or so been working on Umbera. We scratched 3 times that project. 2, 3 times. We're reworking Umbera again. We're working on Umbera again while also updating the current Rylot map. to have a bigger scheme of things. It is a very small map. It will be a 3.5 kilometer by 3.5 kilometer map. It will be very nice. Yeah, we're working on. I wonder if I could just show a snippet while I keep answering question. Just a moment.
Yeah, I'll keep answering questions. So Taz asked if we're going to see admin spawn functionality. There, come back to how it used to be. So it won't be as unrestricted as it is in the future. Custom servers. So we're going to follow kind of suit with how OWI is doing main things. So we're hoping to get a respawn feature or some other things to make moderation a little easier and make that. But we're going to stray away from just the regular spawning in of new stuff on live. Once servers are considered out of seeding, custom servers will still have full control, and we'll keep looking at that. Mostly this has to do with the fact that when the admin menu was pushed through its iterations, which I guess it's now entering V4, even though V2 and V3 were never fully completed or fixed, which is part of the issues where we're at. Has to do with how the wiki system inside is implemented and all. Basically, once core function is back, those features will be expanded out again. But our focus right now is to enable more moderation. So we're also the focus would say right now actually is we're looking to see if we can make a toggleable button for VoIP, for cross team VoIP. So I'll point a little towards that. Maybe bring some interesting components there. And other than that, will we get an Andron Rebels faction like the militia at any point? That's dependent on if we get an Andron map, which currently is not in the pipeline. Devs are more than free to share what Taxman Clanker Hater said about upcoming maps. As Buff said, Umbara is been reworked for the third time. Finally, though, it is in its stages of it's in its stages of completion. Like we're further than we've been in the past, as Buff is currently pulling up. There's still some work to be done. The commander kit, what weapons will we get? Is it like a DC-15S for the clone? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is in the reference to what Buff mentioned in commander loadouts. This more has to do with the actual command asset loadouts than with the.
So it's both actually. So
Okay.
depending on some factions, you might have different commander abilities. For now, we'll just put everything the same. I can't just make everything faster and cleaner. But whenever you'll be able to pick the role commander on the role selection kit, you will be roughly the arc kit where you have 200 HP. So you just have more HP than a standard soldier already. You're a commander, and you just have a standard commander role loadout really. Where we might give a few spice ups or not, depending what it is.
Tazwell, I'm just responding to another question of yours in text since Buff was talking, hence why I'm not talking. Okay. Other than that, let's go through the list. Rydog is asking a really good question here about new player experience. Do we think this is going to influence the new player experience for the game? There will be an influence for sure. What the biggest thing right now is that we track is that a lot of players come to squad simply for GC, and when those people make themselves aware, like make themselves announce themselves, and we see that that's definitely a large demographic. So how those people play into the first couple of matches is pretty important for us to take a look at. But I personally, how we followed our metrics is it's not going to be a necessarily detrimental influence for how players. Actually, let me back it up. Instead of going into the negatives, let me say I think players will be able to experience a whole slew. Oh my gosh, my English is bad at the moment. I've been in Europe too long. New players will be able to experience a whole new set of faction loadouts, variations between different maps. So they'll have more variation. And we're hoping that also between veterans and new players, we'll see some more distinguished fights, and not truthfully the same repetitive iterations of, okay, it is Renvar Invasion V1. We're going to drop 20 players because certain people don't like Renvar, or
Mm.
because the faction setup isn't meant for it. So we're hoping to bridge that gap. And since Buff, you're currently scrolling around, I'll let you talk towards yours as I keep answering some questions.
Cross team VoIP. What a hot topic recently after OWI enabled it. We would enable it maybe as a server config where you say yes or no for GC. We're just really scared of people, saying gibberish things around. But as far as we saw, GE handling things out seems to be okay. So we might roll with cross team VoIP, but we will put it in a server configuration where you will only type equal true or false as a boolean. We'll see. I would say the outcome of this would be high possibility of a yes for cross team VoIP.
Okay, keeping going down the list, I'm seeing slowly the end of questions hitting their list. Will we ever get any Star Wars Old Republic stuff? Oh my gosh.
Good lord.
I think that is going to take a seat even behind Galactic Civil War era stuff, which isn't on the table. So the unfortunate answer, as much, so I'll say, I personally would love a fully fleshed out Old Republic set of things. Um, Truthfully, I've yet to see something as of late, right? Like we have our existing things, but no. The answer to your question, Clanker Hater, is no.
Yeah, that's
Um,
that's a no.
okay. And Hepawali, to come back around, what is actually being worked on right now is literally an admin menu button that will be part of the default setting that a server can click on yes state, and it will persist. The goal is right now for it to persist across matches, basically just as a server sets that config either through the admin menu or through a config itself to say, okay, hey, cross team VoIP is enabled for this server,
Yeah.
isn't. And as you said, the thing that we'll definitely look at is saying, okay, hey, GC1 as an example will run cross team VoIP and GC2 won't, and we'll just see where that goes. And as Buff said, GE, I looked at a couple things over there. That is global escalation for all those who don't know, and spoke with a couple server hosters and admins how they're dealing with things, and they're saying that, of course, as we mentioned, our concern with moderation of VoIP things is a thing, but it's not as present as anyone would have thought. Are we getting AA launchers? Heflali asked. Yes, they're part of the mod. It depends on the faction setup and ultimately what the balancing call is. And
Might need a few
yeah,
fix, but they were already working really. Uh, Before the Tuscans had them, but nobody was really knowing what was going on whenever they were shooting the rocket. So we might rework it a bit. But we do have A rockets. Um, Fair warning, they're not one hit kill. It's mostly a air deterrent to bring the fighter out. Maybe on fighter it might be almost a one hit, but for standard lats and carrier it won't do as much. It's just a very good air deterrent because we don't have a flare system as of now.
yeah, and that is a whole
Yeah,
complex thing.
yeah,
Is as many other games have proven,
yeah.
if we want to integrate it properly, and not just make it a random chance, or like just if like actually adding an actual seeker system is a little bit beyond the scope of what's essential for the current balance as it is. Okay, I'm going to say that I think that wraps up most of our main questions. Buff is shown here, the main GC or Ryloff large version. It's something that we're really looking forward to. So many maps, variations on the works. plenty of content coming along with the proposed, not with the proposed, with the changes that Buff has listed today as well. So there's, but we're not going to show Cessid right now. Those changes are coming soon. People will see that in live.
Mm.
Not to mention whenever we post the patch notes, those will go live as well. Um, so no, Arn, we're gonna keep Umbara close to our chest. It's something that is solidly in the works. Needs some more love. VIPs will, as usual, get the first spoilers at it,
Mm,
and
they do.
uh, there will be plenty of it. But we want to make sure the big thing with Umbara, because I get a lot of these questions, the big thing with Umbara is this will be the first time we see Umbara to this scale in a Star Wars game, and we're not a Star Wars game; we're a mod for it. So we want to do it right by the lore, do right what we as fans ourselves see by it. Um, so we've seen it, or like versions of it for sure, but never to this degree and to this detail. So we want to make it right. Yeah.
Yeah, as a good example here, there's some Moon Barons here. Files laying around in there and in the my mod folder, but there's some heavy stuff going from Barons. Some heavy stuff. This is just what it must be programming wise and gameplay wise and the setup wise, but there's still a 3D art team doing crazy amount of work for Barrow as well. So all behind door right now. We still show some sneak peeks down there, but it's heavy work, heavy work, heavy work.
Yeah, so as Buff keeps talking, oh, Buff is showing the new Galbin as well.
Yeah, Galvin
Um,
Riv, new Galvin has been part of the update already. Just was not used uh, for the new POIs that were added and rework. So here's just a quick sneak peek of what's going on that people will be able to see. So no more. My problem with Galban was main camping. This should no longer be an issue
no
with their
longer the
new
big,
spawns. It should
big
no
main
longer be.
campaign.
So it should no longer be an issue. Hopefully, people will enjoy this layer, just like the other Riv layer we'll put in the next update. And so be it. Show Geonosis. Do I
He
show
wants you.
Geonosis?
He wants you to show Cessid Geonosis.
I don't know, man. Geonosis has
I
some
see
good rework too right now.
Geonosis lack of death holes finally.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
lacking. We also added tunnel for. I mean, the good hint I'll just give away is the clone spawn near the acclimator at the high of the hill. There's now a tunnel for you guys to drive through to go straight in the battlefield. Like no need to poke around going up the mountain or going down. It's like you just go straight in that tunnel. You drive in there and terrain rework a bit. Let's load the map out one. No, I'm not gonna do that. There you go.
That okay. I think with that Yoda looking wreck, we can move on.
Yep.
So I think Buff, are you gonna stick around and show a couple last things and answer questions as they go? Because otherwise, I believe our
Yeah.
rework and phase state event or discussion has reached its end.
Yeah, I will stop the recording. It's been 48 minutes. Good lord. So thank you for being here. This is all for me. I will not spoil more maps. Rework that we did. I wanted people to play in it, really. So I won't spoil it. Perhaps Whooper will in screenshots. That's fine, but I won't spoil it with all the changes. Um, so if you have any question, write it in general chat, or you guys can debate in other public chat. You guys do you. On my end, I must tackle other things for GC and life as of late. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me and Hive.
Yeah,
And
we appreciate everyone taking the time.
and I hope No, I hope everyone appreciates all the work that we're working for GC, that we're doing for GC during our free time. So thank you for being here and have a good day, everyone. Have a good morning.
And for you folk, have a good night, good evening, good night. Yep.